They thought the flames would consume you, that the agony would break you down to dust, that the suffering would carve you into something weak, something brittle, something they could sweep away with a flick of their fingers. Oh, but they miscalculated. They mistook your screams for surrender, your silence for defeat. They believed the darkness had claimed you, that you had drowned beneath the weight of their cruelty. But what they failed to grasp is that hell does not destroy the strong. No, no, hell purifies them. You crawled through the abyss, felt the sharp bite of betrayal, the suffocating grip of despair. You tasted pain in its rawest form, swallowed suffering like it was air. And each time you thought it was over, each time you believed the worst had passed, the flames rose higher, the torment grew sharper. They kept feeding the fire, kept watching to see when you would break, when your spirit would finally crumble into nothing, but you didn't. You couldn't. Because deep inside you, something ancient, something relentless, refused to perish. They don't understand what you've become. They think the same rules still apply, that if they whisper the right lies, if they twist the right knives, you'll fall the way you did before. But they are playing a game with a version of you that no longer exists. That person, the one who bled for their acceptance, who waited for their kindness, that person is gone. You buried them in the ashes of your suffering. What stands in their place is something else, something they have no control over. You see, there are two kinds of people in this world: those who fear fire and those who become it. And after everything they did to you, after every ounce of pain they shoved down your throat, you are no longer afraid. The fire that was meant to devour you has become the very thing that fuels you. It rages in your veins. It burns behind your eyes. And now, as the smoke clears, as the embers glow in the aftermath of all they've done, they are finally beginning to understand. They didn't break you. They built you. They wanted to watch you suffer, to see you crawl, to witness you shatter under the weight of what they did. But what they failed to realize is that every ounce of pain they inflicted only made you more resistant. Every betrayal, every scar, every sleepless night spent drowning in anguish was not a step toward your destruction. It was a step toward your rebirth. Because suffering has a strange way of transforming the ones who endure it. It strips away illusions. It burns away weakness until only the raw, unshakable core remains. And you are that core now, hardened, tempered, indestructible. They counted on your submission. They thought that by chaining you to misery, they could control your fate. They believed that as long as you were down, as long as you were broken, you would never rise again. But they were wrong. The wounds they gave you, they healed into armor. The nights you spent choking on regret, they sharpened your mind. The loneliness they cursed you with, it taught you how to stand alone, how to walk without fear, how to move without hesitation. And now, the same ones who wanted you powerless are the ones who will learn just how powerful you have become. The sun is rising, and with it, so are you. But not as the person they knew. No, the light does not reveal the weak, desperate soul they once toyed with. It does not shine upon a victim still shackled to the past. What the light now reveals is something far more dangerous. It reveals someone who has learned to use the darkness, someone who has made peace with the demons they tried to drown, someone who no longer seeks permission, who no longer waits for justice, they will watch, helplessly, as you ascend from the ruins of what they tried to destroy. They will see, in agonizing clarity, that every battle they forced you to fight only refined you, that every time they pushed you toward the edge, you found a way to hold on, to endure, to claw your way back stronger than before. And the best part? There is nothing they can do to stop it. There is something poetic about it, isn't there? The way they watch in horror as the very thing they tried to destroy steps into the light. The way they once mocked your suffering, only to now be haunted by what it created. They see it now, the cold truth, the inevitable consequence of their actions. The universe has a way of balancing things, of ensuring that debts are paid, that the scales do not remain tipped forever. And your suffering? Oh, it was an investment, one they will soon regret, because now you rise, and they tremble, because the storm they thought had passed is only just beginning. They wanted you buried, but all they did was plant the seed of something greater, something unstoppable. And now, as the dawn breaks and the sun spills golden light across the world, they will finally understand. The darkness did not destroy you. It forged you. They thought you were crawling through hell, but in reality, you were walking through fire, reforging yourself with every step. And now, you no longer crawl. You no longer kneel. You stand tall, unshaken, unbreakable. You are the storm they tried to drown. You are the reckoning they never saw coming. You are the force they cannot contain. Rise, and let them witness what true survival looks like. The embers still smoldered where they left you, but now the fire belonged to you. No longer a victim of the blaze, you became its master, its embodiment, the very force they feared, yet failed to destroy. They assumed your silence meant surrender. How foolish, how blind. In truth, every moment in that abyss carved something new, something unrecognizable from the shattered remains they thought they had left behind. You were no longer a prisoner of their cruelty. You were the executioner of their arrogance, the hand of consequence they never saw coming. As you took your first steps forward, the ground beneath you no longer felt like the fragile terrain they had crushed you upon. It was firm, unyielding, resonating with the strength you had forged in torment. Every wound they inflicted had turned to iron, every scar a testament to the war you survived. The echoes of their laughter, once sharp enough to slice through your soul, were now distant murmurs, powerless, meaningless. They had crafted their own downfall in their attempts to extinguish you. What they didn't realize was that fire does not fear the dark. It consumes it, devours it, turns it into something greater, something unstoppable. Your presence sent a shiver through the very ones who once claimed dominion over your suffering. They saw something in your eyes that was absent before, something they couldn't manipulate, couldn't control. It was a reflection of the truth, a horrifying reminder that they no longer held power over you. Their hands, once eager to push you down, now trembled at the thought of facing what they had unleashed. The same voices that once spat venom now struggled to find words, tripping over their own arrogance, suffocating under the weight of their crumbling illusion. They whispered among themselves, their arrogance now tainted with hesitation. Could it be? Had they truly failed to break you? The answer burned in your gaze, in the effortless way you carried yourself, in the storm that loomed behind your every step. They had not simply failed, they had armed you with a force beyond their comprehension. And that realization sent ripples of dread through the very fabric of their existence. Their world, once so carefully built upon your ruin, now stood on shaking ground. The very foundation of their deceit fractured beneath the weight of an unshakable truth. You were never theirs to destroy. Each day, their confidence withered as they watched you rise. The shadows they had cast over you were now the foundation of your ascent. The air around you had shifted, thick with the weight of unspoken retribution. They felt it, gnawing at the edges of their certainty, unraveling the delusion that they were untouchable. They had wanted to see you shattered, but what stood before them was something unbreakable, something they could neither define nor destroy. And oh, how that terrified them. Their words, once weapons, now faltered under the weight of their own hypocrisy. They no longer spoke with the same venom, for they feared what might be spoken in return. The truth had become their enemy, and they knew it lurked in the very soul they had tried to silence. You did not need to shout, nor did you need to seek vengeance with reckless abandon. Your existence alone was a reckoning they could not escape. It was in your silence, in the quiet power of your unwavering presence, that they felt the sharpest blade of all, the realization that they had lost. They tried to convince themselves that you were still the same, that you could still be controlled. They approached with feigned kindness, laced with the same poison they once dripped into your wounds. But you saw through them now. You saw the desperation behind their smiles, the terror beneath their pleasantries. They were not extending an olive branch. They were grasping at straws, praying for a way to undo the damage they had inflicted upon themselves. But the past is not a thing to be rewritten. It is a stone monument, unmovable, and upon it was carved every sin they committed against you. But there was no undoing this, no reversal, no erasure. What they had done had been set in stone, and that stone had become the foundation of your new self. Every attempt to pull you back into their grasp only served to push them further into their own demise. You watched as their confidence crumbled, as their once towering facades of superiority collapsed beneath the weight of their own cowardice. Their eyes, once filled with smug certainty, now darted with uncertainty. Their voices, once drenched in mockery, now wavered with hesitation. They were trapped in the very snare they had set for you, and the irony of it was suffocating them. They thought they had orchestrated your end, but they had unknowingly written their own downfall. You were not the one who needed saving. They were, and no one was coming for them. So, you let them feel it, the slow, suffocating realization that they were powerless, that the control they had once wielded so effortlessly had slipped through their fingers like ash in the wind. You did not need to lay a hand on them, did not need to speak a single word. Your presence alone was enough to dismantle the empire of lies they had built around themselves. Their kingdom of deceit crumbled at your feet, their throne of arrogance reduced to dust. The more they struggled to reclaim control, the deeper they sank into the abyss of their own making. And that was the cruelest justice of all. They wanted to destroy you. Instead, they became the architects of their own ruin. And you walked away, untouched by the fire they had started. carrying the inferno in your very soul. It was no longer a weapon against you. It was yours to wield, to command, to ensure that never again would you bow to those who sought to break you. Let them tremble. Let them crumble. Let them watch as the very darkness they cast upon you becomes the light that blinds them. Let them rot in the shadows of their own creation, consumed by the very emptiness they once tried to force upon you. Because this is only the beginning. You walked away, but the echoes of your steps haunted them. They felt your presence even in your absence, the weight of their own deeds pressing upon their chests like an iron shackle. The fire they had ignited had not burned you, it had purified you, reforged you into something beyond their understanding. Now, as they cowered in the ruins of their own making, the truth settled upon them like a cold, merciless hand gripping their throats. This was not the end they had envisioned. They were supposed to be the victors, the ones who laughed last. And yet, here they stood, stripped of their illusions, watching the empire of lies they built collapse into dust. They tried to rebuild, to salvage what remained of their once unshakable dominance, but every brick they laid was unstable, every foundation cracked beneath the weight of their own miscalculations. The fear that once belonged to you now belonged to them. They had spent so long crafting the perfect illusion of control, believing themselves untouchable, immune to consequence. But there was no running from this, no erasing the past, no undoing the reckoning they had set in motion with their own hands. Your name had become a silent storm in their minds, a reminder of everything they had tried to bury. They heard it in hushed whispers, felt it in the glances of those who now saw through their façade. The power they once held had shifted, no longer rooted in intimidation, but in the realization that they were the ones now exposed. Every step they took was a desperate attempt to outrun the consequences of their own arrogance. But there was no escaping the inevitable. The ones who had once mocked you now avoided meeting your gaze. They recoiled at the thought of facing what they had created, what they had unleashed. And you? You didn't need to chase them, didn't need to seek revenge. The truth was enough. The knowledge that their own actions had led them here, that their downfall was a direct result of the very destruction they had once so gleefully orchestrated. They spoke in hushed voices, grasping at explanations, fabricating excuses, hoping to shift the blame onto anything but themselves. But it was too late for justifications, too late for apologies. Regret dripped from their words like a poison they had no choice but to swallow. It festered inside them, gnawed at their certainty, left them restless in the silence they had once forced upon you. The fire they had started had not died. It had grown, evolved, and turned its gaze upon them. You stood at a distance, watching as their world crumbled, knowing you did not need to lift a single finger. The weight of truth was far heavier than any revenge you could have taken. The whispers of those who once cheered for their triumph had shifted, now laced with doubt, with suspicion. They could feel it, the slow unraveling of the falsehoods they had built their power upon. One by one, their allies dwindled, their influence withered. No one wanted to stand beside a sinking ship, and theirs had been taking on water from the moment they underestimated you. Still, they clung to their pride, desperate to maintain an illusion of control. They plastered smiles upon their faces, spoke with empty confidence, pretending not to see the cracks in their own reflection. But behind closed doors, they trembled. They felt it creeping in, the understanding that they had become the hunted, that no matter where they turned, they would find only shadows of their own making, reminders of what they had lost, of what they had foolishly thrown away in their pursuit of power. You did not need to revel in their suffering. You did not need to announce your victory. The beauty of it all was that they knew. They knew exactly where they stood. They knew exactly who had won. And that knowledge was more unbearable than any punishment you could have delivered. Their voices, once filled with certainty, now wavered. Their actions, once deliberate and cruel, were now hesitant, second-guessing every move. The fear of retaliation lived within them, even if you had no intention of striking. They had placed you in the fire, hoping to see you burn. Instead, they had only forged the very thing that would haunt them for the rest of their days. You had become the lesson they would never forget, the warning they could never erase, the living testament to the folly of their ways. And so, you walked forward, leaving them behind, never once looking back. Because in the end, the most poetic justice was not destruction, it was survival. And you had done far more than survive. You had risen,